How much better can the MG206 and JAR Dominator get? Seriously, which primary and support weapon combos are most effective against bugs and bots? Which have become even more viable when experimenting further with the PEAK Physique Thicks? And how much of a beast is the Railgun now against Automatons? Don't even get me started on this one, folks. More on that later. I set out to explore these questions, and following on from the previous underrated weapon combo video, I was blown away at just how many people commented, shared suggestions of how they like to combine the primary and support weapons within their loadouts, and with that in mind, I was inspired to create a follow-up video. Now, with that being said, let's get into it. First up, let's take a look at the Automatons and start off with what is now possibly my new favourite combination against bots, the Plasma Punisher and HMG 206. Now that I've had the time to explore a wider range of combinations, along with taking some inspiration from the comment section on the previous video, I am confident in saying that pairing these two weapons together is a supreme choice. Having used the HMG a lot more, I'm even more impressed with just how much PEAK Physique improves the handling of the weapon and a range of other weapons which we will be going over throughout this video. The improvements to the visibility of the red dot when ADSing makes firing this weapon accurately an absolute breeze in comparison to where it was previously. Shooting gunships out of the sky is incredibly satisfying, and my advice here would be look beyond the center of the screen, if that makes sense, and watch the movements of the red dot sight as you spray this weapon, and you will very quickly find a rhythm. Once you get used to this weapon does go to the next level. It can handle any situation with ease and make short work of large packs of enemies, and once you get comfortable with them, you will be surprised at just how effective you are when you rapid fire this thing. With that being said, the addition of the third person reticle also makes this weapon an absolute joy to use. Again, look beyond the center of the screen and keep your eye on the circle and get to grips with the recoil pattern and watch the way it moves as you shoot. And learning this is probably best done by dropping the RPM down to 450, but I would say once you've got the hang of it, keep it in the middle of the road and you can still control this really effectively, and you can actually move around freely when you do this and it still lands shots pretty effectively. I still recommend lying down if you want to take things slowly, but I have found there's certainly different levels of nuance to this weapon if you want to push its overall output. I did go over in the previous video how many hits this takes against certain enemies, and I'm not going to do that now, but at the end of this video there will be a link to the previous one with other awesome underrated weapon combos, so I encourage you to go check that out if you want some more nitty gritty about the 206's damage output. The only enemy I would say you'll have issues with is the shielded Devastators. This requires a little more precision with your aim, otherwise they just end up tanking lots of shots, and it can actually be a bit of a pain, especially when they're at range and you're spraying into a group. You need to keep an eye out for that symbol that shows you that you're hitting armored areas to make sure you're not wasting your shots. But this is where our new favorite partner for the HMG comes into play, the Plasma Punisher. This thing is an absolute joy to play, and I'll hold my hands up, folks, and say I've been sleeping on this thing for a long time. When you get used to the lobbing / arcing nature of the projectiles, it cannot be understated just how effective this is to totally stun lock large groups of Devastators and Striders. It takes around 4 to 5 shots to kill a Devastator and around 1 or 2 to kill a Strider depending on where you hit them, and Berserkers go down in about 3 to 4, and a bot of course goes down in 1. This is with the caveat, or rather a positive I guess, that it staggers everything. Striders wobble around, Devastators stagger around, Berserkers do the same. You can lock down a big group and leave that open for your mates to go and kill them, or for you to get a stratagem in or whatever. It's absolutely amazing. This complements the HMG brilliantly because you can handle any enemy type at long range and make a choice between absolutely destroying them or stun locking them and slowly chipping away at them. Along with the HMG 4 tapping hulks in the eye, the Plasma does work at hulk vents, making it a viable choice here. We do a lot of loadout and weapon testing on stream, and a lot of the footage that you're seeing is captured there. So with that in mind, if you could drop the video a like and drop the channel a subscribe, it'll make sure you're notified when I go live, and of course it also feeds the algorithm and it really helps me out. Thank you. If you want to gear your weapon and synergy towards fully staggering and stun locking enemies and clearing out massive hordes of infantry against automatons, ditch the HMG and take the grenade launcher. Switching between the plasma shotgun and the grenade launcher is incredibly satisfying to play if you want to be on full horde clear duties. Just make sure that you choose stratagems that can take care of heavy targets, of course. Much like the HMG, the use of the third-person reticle is the game changer here, and if you focus on the circle and make sure that you respect the recoil pattern of the grenade launcher, you can be incredibly accurate. My advice here is to slow down the rate of fire just a little bit in order to allow the reticle to reset before firing the next shot. You will have much more luck with this if you're hoping to make every shot count versus spamming rapidly and hoping for the best. This does, of course, mean, folks, that gunships can be a real nightmare, so you need to make sure that your squad mates take the lead for this, and if you want to make sure you can contribute, lean into using the autocannon, the rocket sentry. That'll be a massively good choice here to help out there. This will also help clear out hulks and tanks, which you can obviously deal with if you're hitting the weak spots, but as we all know, that is not always possible. Now, these next two combos really surprise me in terms of not only how effective they are at their roles, but also just how fun they are to play. Taking the JAR-5 Dominator and combining it with the Railgun in unsafe mode with the supply pack is an absolute blast to play. Let's cut straight to the chase. With Peak Physique perk, the JAR-5 Dominator is a monstrous primary weapon against bots. Whilst the JAR has always slapped quite hard, it has been a real pain in terms of getting used to its annoying draggy handling, and it's often felt like a real battle to use it. So much so, it felt like a chore and simply became not very fun to use. That is not the case anymore, folks. It shoots incredibly accurately and feels so smooth and snappy to play. The Dominator shreds through regular bots, striders, and rewards headshots and aggressive accurate chest spam when focusing on devastators. It can be fired in third person very accurately and also feels great when you ADS. Now, the Railgun. This thing took me by surprise. It's an absolute blast to play against bots, especially when you're carrying a supply pack. Pick your shots well and you can take out devastators with head and chest shots when you're around beyond 75 to 80% charge. It cannot be understated just how effective this is once you get into a rhythm, and if you get confident switching between the Dominator and the Railgun whilst aggressively engaging hordes of devastators and striders, you can wreak havoc. I'm fairly certain as well I've managed to secure quite a few collateral kills using the Railgun, which further improves its fun factor. You can also snipe hulks with well-placed shots to the Hulk eye, which is another massive bonus for me. If you want to liven things up in a different direction, take the old arc thrower instead of the Railgun. Despite the lack of stun-locking hulks now since the rage-inducing nerf arrowhead implemented, upon revisiting this weapon in combination with the JAR, this thing still absolutely slaps. Couple this with a relay shield and you can make some really exciting frontline plays with the arc thrower and its exceptional horde clear ability. You can also use terrain to jiggle peak enemies and rely on the arcing effect of the electricity. Combining this with the JAR to cover longer distances for the reason outlined before also makes this a highly engaging and effective setup to play. Moving on to the Terminids, utilizing Peak Physique with the Erupter and the Stalwart combined with some sentry support is a match made in heaven, folks. The Erupter can deal with things like Brood Commanders and Hive Guards in 1 to 2 shots, and it can take out a Bile Spear in 3 shots. Now, this is all well and good, but the fire rate feels absolutely abysmal, if I'm honest. When you're getting overwhelmed, it just feels trash. There is, though, however, a simple, cheeky trick that you can lean into to improve this somewhat. If you take a shot and then quickly switch weapons back and forth, it will negate the rechambering animation, allowing you to get quicker shots off. You can use this in quick succession when dealing with the aforementioned types of target, or you can weave between an Erupter shot and the Stalwart to deal with the chaff and armored targets in equal measure. Charges are obviously the big problem in the game's current state, so stun or dodge charges and make sure you've got your Stalwart on max RPM, dump your ammo into its weak spot and or land grenade pistol shots to dispose of these nuisances. The Stalwart needs no introduction. It can be used at maximum RPM in combination with any horde clear stratagem for devastating results. I've particularly enjoyed using either the rocket or the MG turret to complement this setup, and if you chuck in a napalm as well, you can do some absolutely ridiculous chain kills. Just make sure your team is kitted out to deal with Bile Titans to round off this setup nicely. One of my favourite horde clear setups though against bugs is combining the mighty Breaker Incendiary, which needs no explanation, with the grenade launcher. The Breaker rips through all bug chaff with ease and has the added bonus of melting shriekers out of the sky, but you can use the grenade launcher to deal with Bile Spewers effectively with 3 shots that can AoE down groups of them. Chargers can also be taken down, but I would recommend ensuring teammates are equipped to help out here, along with some anti-heavy stratagems to support here. If you want to give the JAR Dominator another go in the live limelight, then try this out against bugs in unison with the Autocannon. The JAR makes short work of all bugs and can do incredibly top-notch work against bile spewers. If you shoot them in the face, I think it's 5 or 6 shots and you can take one down, and also you can do a great deal of work against brood commanders. The Autocannon complements this really well. You can switch between both weapons and just have fun with it. Wreak havoc. The Autocannon can 3-shot charges if you hit them in their back spot, and combining this with the JAR Dominator just makes both weapons really, really shine. What primary and support weapon combinations do you like to run with and why? Sound off in the comments below. If you'd like to check out more of these synergistic combinations I mentioned previously, then check out the first part of this video. It's got you covered. Take care of yourselves, keep having fun, and I'll see you in the next one.